Welcome to another edition of the Corner Booth Podcast here at the Snowdon Deli. I'm Aaron Rand from CJD, along with Bill Brownstein of the Montreal Gazette, and our special guest today, former Liberal cabinet minister and now political analyst, David Heurtel. David, thank you for being here.
Great to be with you, gentlemen.
Thank you for coming.
Let's right off the top. Let's get to the big news, David. You've chosen to run for leadership of the CAC. Give us a surprise.
Yeah, well, I chose
to make the announcement.
Corner Booth Podcast to make the announcement, and I'm gonna go for the double.
The twofer.
I'm going for the twofer. I'm going to run for the CAQ leadership and the Liberal leadership. Wow. I'm going to try to bring everything together, simplip things. You know?
The LibCacs.
LibCacs.
That's what you're going to. Are you going
or CAC libs, depending on who I'm.
Right. So we're going to assume that's not true. Let's talk about the story this week. François Legault, Monday. You know, I keep saying surprising everybody. Surprise only in when he did it, not that he did it.
Right. Because what was understood with the all-out game plan of the fall, I mean, it was pretty obvious, right? Starting with the cabinet shuffle, proroguing the session at the National Assembly, an inaugural speech, and then, going all out with a constitution for Quebec, war against the doctors, war against the unions, war against immigrants, a new front. He's been at war against immigrants since the very beginning, but he went all out, scrapping the Experience Quebec program, which was very popular, and was bringing in a lot of Francophone immigrants. That's the irony of all of this. And a program that employers wanted in the regions, in Montreal, everywhere, and it was working. When I was immigration minister, it was one of the bright stars of our immigration policies. And so, and poll after poll after poll showed that nothing was sticking. Nothing was working. He was trying to blame the federal government for everything. And
Did he blame the Anglos?
He of course, well, he blamed. He's been blaming the Anglos for a while. That was another. But But also, what was interesting is that his personal approval numbers kept plummeting.
Right.
And for a person that is so obsessed with his relationship with Quebecers, his personal relationship, there's a lot of narcissism there. And so to see those numbers, those unfavorables going much, much further than anything that we saw with Justin Trudeau, or even the worst days of Jean Charest. Remember when the spring and everything that had gone on in the last months of the Charest regime. We've never seen such an unpopular premier. And I guess what was clear here is that he was completely disconnected. I was thinking about this. We can talk about all the cause of different episodes, which we've all known, and we've seen all the lists of everything over the past few days. But François Legault, and he was in opposition when I was minister, of course, but he was the classic grievance politician. It was about blame. It was always about blaming us, the Couillard government, blaming the federal government, blaming the Anglos, blaming immigrants. It was always, and that brought him up to power. And also because both the Liberals and the PQ were in shambles when you look at 2018. I mean, these were two parties that were in deep, deep, deep decline. And so he got power. First thing he does, he gets rid of the $5 billion surplus, one of the bright spots of the government I was part of. We left the finances in order. He gets rid of that, and then the pandemic hits.
To your point about that, this is a guy who start was business. This was his forte.
It was.
And then, he completely neglected that aspect of everything.
Well, he came up grieving, saying, government is too big.
Right.
What did he do? Exploded government.
Right.
What did he say? He said, we're a government of accountants. He actually said that,
right? Bringing in Christian Dubé, Pierre Fitzgibbon, basically Quebec Inc., and we're gonna take Quebec to the next level economically. And he had taken the mantle away from the Liberals, and that was his calling card. And so the pandemic comes, and he there's some things we can criticize, others not. We're not going to do this, obviously, this morning, but he becomes kind of like Papa Legault, right?
Mon oncle François.
Mon oncle François, and his popularity explodes, and he's able to carry that into the 2022 election. And again, the PQ still was the shadow of what it is today. The Liberals were nowhere, so he gets a supermajority, 41% of the vote, and he sticks to the old guns. He's still talking identity, and he doesn't realize that Quebecers are elsewhere, because poll after poll since 2022, you look at all the polling, the identity issues, language, immigration, all of that. When you look at the polls, even in the deepest francophone regions of Quebec, this is not a top 5 issue. Far from it. And as we see, as inflation creeps up, as the economy slows down, he's completely disconnected with what Quebecers are feeling.
Right.
Have you ever heard, really, François Legault talk about affordability, about inflation, about the grocery bill, about the rent, about the mortgage? Never.
But he did give us Northvolt and
Well, no, but that's where we can go. We can talk about his obsessions and his different failures.
Let me go back
Absolutely.
to what you said, though. If I think about, we started this by saying it was not that he resigned, but when he chose to do it. Just a couple of weeks before that, he came, had a press conference, said, I took my walk in the snow, right?
Absolutely.
Referencing Trudeau, and saying, I've decided to stay.
Absolutely.
And then you had really a complete about face. So between that time and Monday, what happened?
Well, I really think that what happened is that up until the end of year interviews, it was still the strategy. It was still the game plan. And I think what the game plan was, we're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at the wall during the fall. See if anything sticks. And we're going to have a very frank evaluation of the result of the strategy during the break. And I think there was a clear understanding that there was absolutely no way that he could pull himself out of this. And thinking about legacy, imagine, going out. And remember, Justin Trudeau was the same.
Yeah.
Even after the Chrystia Freeland bombshell, he was sticking to his guns for several weeks.
But in that case, there was a revolt within. Do you think there was a revolt within here for
No, I don't think it's a question of revolt. I mean, everybody that is in that caucus owes everything to him. And this is a party, I keep saying this, but it's true. He founded it in his living room. This is his child. And so I don't think it's about a revolt. It's more about him looking. I always thought it was a battle between him and his ego, right? And especially with these politicians, it's very hard, especially when your lifelong obsession, dream is to become Premier of Quebec. He left the private sector for that reason. The Lucien Bouchard coming in, leaving the PQ. His entire political career was about getting to the top. So leaving that once you have it is incredibly hard, incredibly difficult. And so I think the same energy that gets you to the top is the same. It's the energy that tells you there's still a way. There's still a way.
Okay.
There's a way I can win.
So it's not about a poll or a couple of
I think it's just sitting with. Ultimately, in François Legault's universe, there's his wife, there's Martin Koskinen, his chief of staff, Brigitte Legault, his organizer, the two key people that have been with him from the start. Right. And I think ultimately there was a very, very clear assessment of the situation, and going in, there was nothing left to play, no more cards.
And not even his vanity could keep him.
Well, I don't think so. Same thing again. Trudeau, Brian Mulroney, Jean Charest. I mean, at one point you get to a place where there's just nothing left.
Do you think there was a point in him deciding when or if he was going to do this, where he said, and again, by virtue of the fact this is his baby, right? He started the party, was the party. where, given the poll results, and I know politicians will always say we don't look at polls, and we know, of course, they all look at polls.
They look obsessively at
But
polls.
he thought to himself, okay, for the good of the party, if I don't step down, maybe the CAQ is basically done as a party.
I wouldn't see. I get you saying calling it for the good of the party. I think he's thinking legacy. I think one of the politicians he said he admired was Maurice Duplessis, and there are a lot of parallels here. Maurice Duplessis created the Union Nationale, and well, they didn't leave the same way. Maurice Duplessis died in office, obviously, but what happened after? The party was able to survive thanks mainly to a young, charismatic politician named Daniel Johnson. But after that, it floundered. After, again, unfortunately, Daniel Johnson's passing, the party was never able to recover from that. But there was something. They still won back power without Duplessis.
Right.
And I think the biggest achievement for François Legault, because when you look, I think when you look at the two mandates, there isn't much to hang your hat on in terms of achievements. I don't think history will look kindly on these last 8 years. There might be Hydro-Quebec, but we'll see in 10, 15 years. But just to say, I think ultimately for him, for his personal legacy, to see the party continue and to have a serious chance of maybe gaining power, not this time around, but maybe in the future.
And not going down with the ship.
There you go. Not being just about him.
Yeah.
David, the party is such a loosey-goosey coalition of people on the far right, people on, well, not far left, but a little bit left.
Well, far right, you're going to get calls for that. You're going to get emails for that.
Well, no, but I'm just saying right, left.
No, radical right.
Radical right.
You got radical right and center.
But my point is, who's his hand-picked successor? Does he go to SJB? Or does he go to Roberge? Or does he go the other, Girard, Fréchette? I mean, they're so opposed diametrically to one another.
How little time it took to go from he resigned Monday to now everyone's talking about how he leave.
Everybody. Christopher Skeet is apparently.
Well, okay. So what's fascinating about this, and I remember I was a young staffer, and I saw this when Lucien Bouchard resigned. Actually, apparently to the day, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
The irony of the history, because who brought François Legault into politics? Right. Lucien Bouchard, and he resigns to the day, the same day that Lucien Bouchard had his surprise announcement in 2001. But the leadership race is not heating up. It is red hot since Wednesday. Because in this types of situation, was the same type of situation that happened when Bouchard resigned. This is going to be an entirely intra-caucus race. There could be an outsider, some names are being bandied around, but ultimately, this is a party that has, at best, 15,000 members. I think that's inflated. Mm-hmm. Just to give you an idea, when the Liberals did their leadership race, they had 21,000 members, 14,000 of which voted during the leadership convention. So 15,000 members is not a lot. And that doesn't mean all of those people will actually vote. And yes, you can sell cards, et cetera, but at the end of the day, who has the organizations? It's the MNAs. It's those MNAs that have the network in the regions that can bring actual people to vote. Right. And so this is going to be mainly a totally intra-caucus fight, and the calls have been going on since Wednesday. And what you're seeing emerge right now is there is that center-moderate wing, economic center-moderate wing, which Christine Fréchette seems to embody right now, clearly. And you have the hardline, hardcore identity politicians, and that's Simon Jolin Barrette. Those are the core wings right now that are developing. All the other names, we could go down the list, but Geneviève Guilbeault and François Bernardel, in my opinion, are damaged goods. Well, we've heard with the Gallant Commission sending, because people not everybody knows this, but when there's a report about to come out, and I remember when I was the minister, the Auditor General does that as well. When there's an inquiry, when you're mentioned in the final report, you get an advance notice, and you have the chance to respond prior of the publication.
And they tell you it's not going to be good.
They tell you what's in it. And what we now know is that both Geneviève Guilbeault and François Bonnardel have gotten notices of being not credible. That their testimony was not credible. So
Kind of scratch them from the
so
list.
those two are gone. All the other ones, Skeet and all the other guys, they're positioning themselves to basically maintain their status in the next administration. They want to stay ministers. It's like what Karina Gould tried to do. Nobody thought she was going to even come close to winning.
I did.
But
I liked her. I thought she was
no,
great.
there's nothing to do about
I liked some of her policies as well.
Really?
I don't
I'm
remember
like that.
you picking
I'm like
Karina
that,
Gould.
God, Eric.
Yeah, I interviewed her. I thought
Yeah.
I liked her very, very much. I thought she spoke well. I thought she had some good ideas.
Of course.
Put some buka in your tea.
Didn't work out so well.
No, but I mean, again,
So who do you foresee? Like I agree with the two groups.
didn't you ask me? Or who asked me? Did you ask me?
No.
You asked me on Wednesday. Yeah, you
Oh,
asked
shoot.
me. You asked me on CJAD
Who you
who I
thought?
thought.
I'm
I
asking
called
you.
it. I called it on Wednesday. On Wednesday after at 2:00,
Yeah.
I said, I think Christine Fréchette, and that was before everything that has been.
I think
transpired.
that would,
was since
that would
she
be
is interested
that would
in-
be a smart.
She's got organizers.
Yes.
Yeah.
She
Smarter
has
economically.
very close ties, and obviously, again, let's be logical here. François Legault, if we're saying this is his baby, he probably will not obviously come out and say, I want this person. But you got to think that his close inner circle and himself, they're going to be watching this very closely, and he's going to want to have some sort of say
Right.
on where this is going. But what I think right now, what Simon Jolin Barrette is trying to do here is he's polling as well about him. Problem is, his favorables are not very high.
But Legault is very fond of.
He's very fond, but Legault called him himself the robot. In the first term, he called it the robot, and the robot was a bit broken. But he is liked within the caucus with that more radical right, identity nationalist part of the caucus.
But,
the other
okay.
guys, I think they're just positioning
What
themselves to
about Eric
maintain their
Girard
status.
as a compromise?
I don't see it.
The Corner Booth podcast is brought to you in part by the Snowdon Delicatessen, where we are. 75 years in business, the home of Montreal's greatest smoked meat, plus carnotzel, potato latkes, and the famous Snowdon Deli party sandwiches. That's the Snowdon Delicatessen.
I don't
First
see
thing
it.
that'll come up
I
is the
don't
money
see
we
it.
spent bringing hockey to Quebec
Let-
City.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
Let's
that.
waste some time.
I forgot about that one,
I
yeah.
don't see Eric Girard having any type of chance. I mean, he's the guy that has his name on the two largest deficits in Quebec history,
good point.
which is hamstringing us right now. So, because other governments, even Donald Trump, is sending aid package to people to fight the tariff impact and inflation. We can't do that here because we have absolutely no money.
So this is a question. So logic prevails. Christian Fréchette emerges as the leader. A lot of people speculating this will not be a bonus to the PQ because, and if Milliard comes in on the Liberal side, this is going to turn the race upside down.
I think it will definitely change the preconceived notion that, save an unforeseen event, PSPP is just going to glide towards power on October 5th. Already, let's understand, already PSPP is slipping. His comments against against the culture sector, against the Radio-Canada newsroom, against research, academia. The polls showed there was a net drop in the polls. If you take the Léger before the comments and the last Léger of the year, there's a drop. He dropped. And he has an interesting Poiliev problem with women. When you look at support for sovereignty and support for the Parti Québécois, men support in the 40s. Women, it's in the low 20s.
Really, I wasn't aware.
And it's the same type of gender gap that Pierre Poilievre has. Pierre Poilievre, when you look at his support, he has a huge gender gap with women of all generations. So PSPP already has I would say, quote unquote, a woman problem. And because he comes off of arrogant and not very how should I say, he has trouble connecting with Quebecers on issues. Have you heard him on inflation? No. Have you heard him on the grocery bill, affordability, housing? All these issues that are, again, top 1, 2, and 3
Well,
in
he's
the poll.
hyper-focused on a referendum, not separation.
But that's it.
That's pretty much
And
it.
so if you have a Christine Fréchette, first of all, a woman, smart, calm, not aggressive, not in that Poiliev PSPP mold of, very, very standoffish and very, well, this is the way it's going to be, and if you don't like it, tough luck. And so Christine Fréchette, very smart. She doesn't ooze charisma, but at the same time, Mark Carney needs it, right?
Carney, yeah.
So she has. I'm not saying Christine Fréchette is Mark Carney from it, but she could do enough to keep, and she has to keep those nationalists that are still with the CAQ. Let's remember, she has the bona fides. She
came from the PQ.
She was Jean-François Liset's chief of staff, and she left because of the Charter of Values.
Right.
And so she has the economic chops, so she could do something very interesting. I'm not saying she's winning the election, but she could definitely hurt the PQ.
So my question, as you sort of outlined this, is from in a broader sense, with poll numbers going lower and lower, never mind for Legault, but for the party itself, right? Tied dead last poll, Palace data poll.
But still over 10%.
But why would anyone want to take over that party when it looks like, and obviously the election's still 10 months away, whatever, when it looks like you're not even going to win a single seat? Why would you want to be the head of that party?
You get to be Premier of Quebec
for a few months,
and it's nothing to sneeze at. When you're in politics, it's the top of the mountain. And also, you could turn it around for the future. Imagine.
Look how Carney did it for the Liberals.
So you mean being prepared to sit there for 4 years till the next election?
Let's say, look what PSPP did. He stayed 3 seats, and now he's at the doors of power.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that when PSPP took over the leadership of the Parti Québécois, we could have sat here and said, why would you want to run a party like that? Well, you know what? He turned it. Look at Jean Charest. When the Conservatives, he was the leader of a party that had 2 MPs. And that party ultimately formed power. It was Stephen Harper. But, I mean, it came back.
Okay.
But there is that challenge of also saying, okay, I can turn this around, salvage the party, and then turn it around and build it up into the next version, the next iteration of it, next 4 years. When you're in politics, you always think, okay, well, there's a way. Let's find a way. And the challenge is exhilarating from that perspective.
Dave, one thing we haven't talked about, the Milliard effect.
Oh, the Liberals now. Yeah, for sure.
Does this benefit the Liberals in any way, shape, or form?
I think it helps Charles Milliard in several ways. Because one, it's going to give him some space, because during that race, it's going to give him some space to get himself known, to define himself in front of Quebecers. But also, it takes away 2 things from the CAQ. One, while the CAQ is infighting and finding their leader, he has an opportunity to establish himself as the one having the economic mantle. Because still, the CAQ is going to, with Legault, was still going to fight for it. And so, because in that support, that 10-12% support that the CAQ has, there are some disgruntled Liberals in there, right? In the regions, there's some Liberals. There's some Federalists in there. And let's remember that about between 25 and 30% of the PQ support is Federalist. Poll after poll confirms that. So Charles Milliard has to be able to take this time now and really roll out an ambitious economic agenda tied to affordability. The thing I would do if I were in his war room, Plus Saint-Pierre Plamondon rolled out, and he keeps rolling out month after month after month, this livre bleu, this blue book for the next 10 years of an independent Quebec. You know, in the fall it was the currency, right? And then there's going to be. If I were in Charles Milliard's shoes, I wouldn't wait. I would come out like in the next few weeks with a red book, a livre rouge, not the next 10 years, the next 10 months, and roll out concrete measures to help people with the affordability issues, with healthcare and education today. What do we do to turn things around in Quebec? And I think he has a shot there to do this. Now, the other piece is that, remember François Legault, when he was still fighting to stay in the year-end interviews and after Pablo Rodriguez resigned, he jumped on it and he was road testing, I'm the only guy that can stop a referendum. That was a division, that was a way to divide and keep the disgruntled Liberals and, you know, bring some back that they was leaving. So I think Milliard now can position himself as, I'm the only guy. If you don't want a referendum, and again, going back to Leger, 60% of Quebecers do not want a referendum.
Yeah.
So there's a vote there.
Including the ones who would vote PQ but don't want
That's
a referendum.
it. Well, it's the same people who vote PQ who vote PQ but voted for Mark Carney.
Right.
A lot of PQists in the regions voted Carney because they're saying, look, guys, this is all okay. The dream is great, and I still believe in the dream, just not now. we right now we need the banker from Edmonton.
Yeah.
I mean, even if his French isn't good.
Yeah.
So we might have that kind of vibe because Charles Milliard, just a quick point, Charles Milliard to me has a potential of bringing a bit of a Robert Bourassa type of vibe.
That's what he's compared to. Yeah.
You know, he has a potential. He hasn't demonstrated the intellect or the policy chops. I mean, Robert Bourassa was legendary. Won 4 majority governments. Not a lot of Quebec politicians can say they've won 4 majority governments, twice 2 in a row, and some of the biggest in history, actually. But this guy, again, another one that didn't ooze charisma. It wasn't a great orator.
Yeah.
But Quebecers, especially when it was funny when you contrast him to René Lévesque, but it shows, the duality of the Quebec ethos, Sometimes you want to go with emotion, passion, heart, and which René Lévesque had, and he had the smarts as well. But other times you say, hold on a second, let's just put the house in order, and go with the guy that has that set of skills. And if Charles Milliard can, because he kind of stumbled a bit, nothing major, but the last few interviews, this last few days, stays in generalities, isn't really focusing on core messages. I mean, for a guy that just ran for almost a year for the leadership, he should be rolling out stuff concretely right now, position himself, defining himself, and showing Quebecers, hey, I'm ready.
So you're welcome, Charles Milliard. That's what you want to be doing. And
that's what I think.
It makes sense.
That would be my game plan.
Something else that I find puzzling is that for the PQ, in light of Mr. Trump's musings about taking over Greenland, how susceptible would an independent Quebec be in the whole scheme of things? I mean, wouldn't you be concerned?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's part of the concerns, definitely. And I would say one other thing that greatly hurt François Legault, just if you let me, is the fact that he never really positioned himself as being the guy that would defend Quebec.
Stand up.
Right.
Just stand up. Just like, I'm not saying he should have been the same thing as Doug Ford was, but he just seemed to be staying back and not really telling Quebecers, look, we're going to get through this. The contrary of the pandemic. The pandemic, we're going to be here. The governor's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to get through this. Well, same thing. People are incredibly worried. When you look at the confidence levels, some polls will show you at some moments during the last year, I mean, our confidence was lower than at the worst times of the pandemic in terms of people's economic future. People are worried about their future. It's not just the grocery bill and the rent today. It's where am I going to be 6 months from now? And Legault is nowhere there. So to your question, I think, quite honestly, that PSPP is going to have a very hard time demonstrating to Quebecers that we're going to be better off. And just to give another example, you're talking about tariffs. Something that we didn't have back in the 95 vote, Brexit happened.
Right.
Ask the British if they would like a do-over now. Look at the British economy since Brexit. It's a disaster.
To your point, it's funny. Someone brought up the other day that when you look at the numbers of the people supporting the idea of separation, it's young people. And you have to point out those people were not around in 1995 to see how divisive that referendum ended up being. They have no history of that. That's what PSP is playing to.
Yeah, but again, I know there was a lot said in the summer from that poll, but that the subsequent polls have shown that that poll that showed a really interesting bump in the youth vote for separation, that kind of calmed down. It seems like that poll was an outlier.
Okay.
But it seems like, again, because since then it has gone back a bit down, but it's the same thing. Youth, you have to be careful with youth. If you're a young person right now trying to find a job, trying to start a family, we see the numbers right now. People are putting off starting a family because of the economic uncertainty. Do you want to add to that economic uncertainty the whole thing with independence?
I would just say, we're going to have to wrap up strategically then. So you've given Charles Milliard some, I think, pretty good advice. For PSPP, if you begin to realize, as you just said, what really the issues are, for young people as well, let's assume that poll is an outlier. Do you see him changing his approach? Does he go from being an ideologue to being a pragmatist? I mean, you know what people want to hear about, but you're just so hyper-focused on separation, you don't see it? You don't think it's important?
I think he's believing right now, and I kind of understand this from a political strategy perspective. He's dancing with the one that brought him there. It's working.
Yeah.
I mean, that persona, this thing, look, it's independence or bust. Mm-hmm. He's leading in the polls, and if an election were held tomorrow with those numbers, he'd have 75 seats in the National Assembly. So, but again, I think those numbers, there's not a lot of comfort there, because I think Quebecers right now are parking. A lot of Quebecers are parking there. When you have 30% of your support, when you're an independent party, and 30% of your support is Federalist, I'd be asking myself some questions. So I would go, to answer your question, excuse me, I would say he's going to have to start talking to people, and he won't have any choice because the media is going to start asking him about this. Okay, today, what are you doing about the grocery bill? What are you doing about rent? What are you doing about housing? What are you doing about healthcare? What are you doing about education? Your immigration policies are flying in the face of Quebec's aging population problem. I mean, last year, more Quebecers died in Quebec than were born in Quebec. The only reason why we had more people than dying was because of immigration. And so the idea here is that he's going to have to explain that specifically. And right now, what we've seen so far, every time he's been pressed, he gets flustered. He gets angry. And again, that's a Poilievre problem. And look what happened with Poilievre ultimately. And so he's going to have to start showing a softer side, a compassionate side, and start talking about the issues that concern Quebecers today.
And he's never going to deviate about a referendum.
Because that's his base. You're right. That's his problem.
Yeah.
That's his 7-10 split.
And he's never going to back down and say, okay, we'll wait to another.
But he's going to maybe he can add that. Maybe it's a comma and.
Right.
Maybe.
David, I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be with you as always.
The insight and the analysis.
Fun.
Thank you for
David.
watching. We'll see you again soon on another edition of the Corner Booth Podcast.